Let me start our next topic in states of matter, gaseous state. That is kinetic theory of gases, kinetic molecular theory of gases, or simply kinetic theory of gases. So at the beginning, let me tell you 2 or 3 points about this. This is by nature a difficult topic. Boyle's law, Charles' law, Avogadro's law, ideal gas equation, Dalton's law of partial pressures, they are relatively easier topics compared with this. That is one thing. So be ready, all of you. And second one, here in this particular theory, there are some theoretical postulates. I will tell you, I will list out all the postulates at the beginning. And after that, there is a derivation, somewhat lengthy derivation. And in that, some concepts from physics, which all of you know. No matter whether you are from CBSE background or ICSE background or state board background, no matter. All of you have that background. All of you have those basic things in physics. You must have learnt about them, and we will use all of them in the derivation. So what I will do here is, while deriving the kinetic gas equation, first I will tell you the theory, then I will give you the derivation. So we will arrive at kinetic gas equation finally, and while deriving it, I will also write on the right side those concepts which I am using, those concepts which you already know. You might have studied them in your 9th standard or 10th standard. I will make you recall all those concepts. I will use them. Then I will use them. So if you listen to me very carefully, although this particular topic is a difficult topic, but I think all of you can understand. You have to put more efforts, and you have to be very serious about it. Okay, first let me tell you the postulates. Postulates of kinetic theory of gases. So let me simply call it as KTG, kinetic molecular theory of gases. In short, we call it as kinetic theory of gases. Okay, in this, the first postulate is that we have a vessel of volume V. V is the volume of the vessel, and you all know gases do not have their own volume. Volume of the vessel is nothing but volume of the gas. So we have taken a vessel whose volume is V. And this vessel can be of cubical shape, it can be of cylindrical shape, it can be of spherical shape, it can be of some irregular shape. So we are not at all worried about the shape of the vessel. Okay. Now in this vessel, we have n number of molecules. Capital N is the total number of molecules. Capital N is not moles. Capital N is the total number of molecules. Okay. And small m is mass of each particle, each molecule, each atom. So let me write down mass of each particle. And here also it is better to write down particle, because the gas may contain molecules, the gas may contain atoms. So it is better to write as particles. Okay. Now, suppose if there are n moles of the gas, small n, let us say moles of the gas present. So small n is the moles, capital N is the total number of particles, and small m is the mass of each particle. If that is the case, can I write small n, which is the moles, into Avogadro number is equal to capital N? Moles into Avogadro number is equal to total particles. Yes. In 1 mole we have 6.022 into 10 power 23 particles. In 2 moles 2 into that. In 3 moles 3 into that. So total number of particles is nothing but moles into Avogadro number. Now one more relation I am writing here, that is small m into Na, that is equal to capital M, which is molar mass, mass of 1 mole of a substance, and units are gram per mole. Small m is mass of each particle, and if we add masses of 1 Avogadro number of such particles, you will get molar mass, because molar mass is nothing but mass of 1 mole. So small n into Na is capital N, small m into Na is equal to capital M, which is molar mass. So be very careful about all those letters, small letter, capital letter and all that. Okay. And here second postulate. Volume of the molecules, volume of the particles, and I am not talking about volume of the vessel, I am talking about volume of the particles, is negligible when compared to volume of the vessel. When compared to volume of the vessel, and we have already taken that to be V. So here in my derivation, in my explanation, and while I list all the postulates, wherever you see V, capital V, that is the volume of the vessel. So that means here in this vessel we have so many particles. Particles have their own volumes, although very small. Actually, you know, atom, molecule, they are tiny particles. They are very small particles. And volume of those, such a tiny particle, sum of the volumes, if you add all those volumes, even then that volume is negligible to volume of the container, volume of the vessel. So volume of the molecules is negligible. This is the second postulate. And the third postulate is that there are no attractive or repulsive forces. There are no interactions. And these interactions include both attractive and repulsive forces. Between the particles. No interactions between the particles. And if you remember, all of you, I told you already, if there are no interactions between the particles, that is ideal situation. And in ideal gas, you don't have any interactions. But in all real gases, we have some interactions. Maybe weak or strong, depending upon the gas, depending upon the conditions, but there are interactions. So this theory assumes that there are no interactions between the molecules. And volume of the molecules is negligible when compared to volume of the container, volume of the vessel. Sum of the volumes of all the molecules is negligible when compared to volume of the container. Then next postulate. You know, in a sample of gas, there are collisions among the molecules, collisions with the wall of the container. Because you know, the one of the important properties of gaseous state is that gas molecules are in random motion. translational kinetic energy. Center of mass of the molecule moves from one place to another place. So when they move randomly, obviously they collide with each other and they collide also with the wall of the container. So this theory assumes that all those collisions are elastic, perfectly elastic. And what do you mean by elastic collision? Elastic collision is defined as Ke before the collision, Ke of the system. Suppose two molecules are colliding. What is the total kinetic energy of those two molecules? Kinetic energy of the system before collision is equal to kinetic energy of the system after collision. That means if kinetic energy is conserved, then you call it as elastic collision. Kinetic energy of the whole system. See, two molecules are colliding. One molecule may gain speed and other molecule slows down. It may happen. But if total kinetic energy remains same, before and after, then that particular collision is called as elastic collision. So this theory assumes that collisions are perfectly elastic in gases. Okay, and the last postulate here is that the walls of the container are rigid. They do not move. And they are infinitely massive. Suppose this is the wall of the container and a molecule comes and collides with this wall. Because of this collision, this wall does not move. Wall is static, rigid. And this molecule bounces back. So it is rigid and it is infinitely massive, obviously. When compared to mass of the molecule which it is colliding, when compared to mass of the molecule, mass of the wall is enormous, so many times greater. So in comparison, you can say mass of the wall is infinite. We can definitely say that. So these are the postulates. We have a vessel whose volume is V, and I am repeating, we are not worried about the shape of the vessel. Capital N is the total number of particles. Small n is the moles of the gas. Small m is the mass of each particle. Then by definition, small n into Avogadro number will be the capital N, and small m into Avogadro number will be the molar mass. This molar mass is also called as gram atomic weight, gram molecular weight. Same thing, one and the same. Okay. Then volume of the particles is negligible when compared to volume of the vessel, volume of the container. No interactions between the molecules whatsoever, no attractions, no repulsions. Collisions are perfectly elastic. Kinetic energy is conserved, kinetic energy before the collision and after the collision is same. Then walls of the container are rigid, and whenever a molecule collides with the wall of the container, absolutely there is no movement in the wall. It is rigid. And only the molecule comes, collides and bounces back. Okay, and mass of the wall is very, very high when compared to mass of the particle which is colliding it. So that is what is meant by infinitely massive. So with this theoretical background, using these postulates and using some physics principles which you gathered in your lower classes, all of you, no matter from which school you come from, no matter from which board you come from, CBSE or ICSE or state board, you can all understand that. I will make you recall, and I told you already, I will write them also, those concepts, before I use them in my derivation. Now let us come to the derivation of that equation. Derivation of that equation, kinetic gas equation. Okay. Actually, first suppose this is the wall of the container. The container which you have taken, this is the wall, and on that wall, along x-axis, suppose let us say this is x-axis, this is y-axis, and this is z-axis. Cartesian coordinates, x, y, z axis, mutually perpendicular. They are like this. Okay. So along x-axis, one particular particle, one molecule is traveling towards that wall of the container, and wall is like this. The molecule is coming along x-axis, and it comes there, it collides with the wall of the container, and it bounces back, and you all know that wall does not move, and molecule or particle bounces back, and it will travel in the opposite direction. Okay, here momentum of the particle, momentum of the molecule or particle before collision is equal to, suppose let us assume that, one assumption, all molecules have same velocity. In the vessel which we have taken, in that gas sample, all molecules of gas have same velocity. This is the assumption. That is not true. And one more thing, although I am assuming that velocity of all the molecules is same, but later on during the derivation I will remove that assumption, don't worry about that. See, actually molecules can have different velocities. There are crores and crores of molecules. So it is absolutely wrong to assume that all molecules have same velocity, and I am assuming that only temporarily. And during the course of the derivation, after some time, I will remove that, don't worry. So first let me take that assumption, and let me write down here. The assumption is, the assumption which will be removed later, all particles have same velocity. And let us say that is V. Small v. So here we have taken along x-axis, and mass of each particle is small m. You all know momentum means mass into velocity. Okay. So before collision, the momentum will be small m into Vx, and x stands for x-axis. So this is the momentum of the particle when it travels along the x-axis. Okay, and momentum of the same particle after collision, and you know velocity is a vector quantity. So wall is rigid. Wall does not move, we know that already. Molecule is very tiny particle, it is almost massless when compared to mass of the wall. So wall does not move, only molecule bounces back with same velocity. With same velocity, but in the opposite direction. Magnitude is same, but the molecule will move in the opposite direction. So the momentum will be minus mvx. Actually, after collision, the molecule will travel with the same speed because collisions are elastic. Total kinetic energy is conserved. The molecule came like this, it collided with the wall of the container. Wall was at rest before collision and wall is at rest during collision. Wall will be at rest after collision. Though there is no movement in the wall and kinetic energy is conserved. So the velocity, the speed of that particular particle before collision and after collision must be same. So it will be minus mvx. So now if you can write down change in momentum. Change in momentum. In fact, we want only magnitude. So magnitude of change in momentum is equal to, because we are taking the magnitude, then you will get 2mvx. If you take the actual change in momentum, this is the final momentum, this is the initial momentum, final momentum minus initial momentum, that is what it change. So minus mvx minus mvx. So it will be minus 2 mvx, but we want only the magnitude, so 2 mvx. So this is the magnitude of change in momentum per collision, because there is only one collision, so per collision, that is equal to 2 mvx. Now this is change in momentum per collision, and if you can measure the total number of collisions, then we multiply change in momentum per collision with number of collisions, and then you will get total change in momentum. So for that we require number of collisions. Now see, now listen to me carefully. I am going to give you some idea about number of collisions. Again, let me take the wall of the container. It is something like this. And you can imagine this is the wall of the container. Now, suppose if a molecule is to collide this wall in a small amount of time dt. Let me repeat that. If a molecule is to collide this wall of the container in a small amount of time dt, then at the beginning of that particular time interval, that should be at a distance ux into dt. And with that particular distance, if you imagine a particular area on the wall of the container, and that distance into area, suppose if you imagine the circular area, then you can imagine a cylinder. You can imagine a cylindrical shape, imaginary cylindrical shape. Now let me draw it and I will explain it again. So suppose you imagine a cylinder like this, with area of cross section A, and its length is ux into dt. So we are using v, so vx dt. Okay, first you tell me what is velocity into time period, distance. So what I want is in a small amount of time dt means a very small amount of time, maybe 10 power minus 5 seconds, 10 power minus 6 seconds, very small amount of time. In that amount of time, a molecule is to collide the wall of the container. Then obviously, the molecule at the beginning of that time period, the molecule must be here. And in that time period, it travels a distance vx into dt. And if that travels in that direction, in the direction of the wall, and it goes and collides with the wall of the container. And we have taken area of cross section A, circular area. We have taken circular area actually. You can take square area, you can take the area of any shape, no problem. For simplicity, I have taken a circular area, and if I take circular area and if I am seeing the distance, that is Vx into dt, which molecule is traveling in a time dt, then you are getting a cylinder, imaginary cylinder. Okay. Now, this imaginary cylinder, area of cross section is A and distance is, that means height. You can say the height. Height is Vx into dt. So that means this is the wall of the container, and we imagine a cylinder like this, a cylindrical shape. Its area of cross section is A and its height or distance is Vx into dt. At the beginning of the dt, the molecule is at the starting of that cylinder, and then it travels a distance ux into dt, then it collides with the wall of the container. Okay, that is one thing. Now, how many molecules are there in that cylinder? Not in the vessel, all of you please remember. I am not talking about the vessel which we have taken. Just I have taken one wall of that vessel and I have imagined a cylindrical shape actually, imaginary. So, how many molecules are there in that cylinder? Now let me write down. Molecules or particles, let me write down particles, this is a better word. Particles, number of particles present in the cylinder. The cylinder which we have imagined is equal to, if you remember, we have taken total n particles, capital N. So, n upon V. V is the volume of the vessel, not the volume of the imaginary cylinder. It is the volume of the vessel. So, n upon V can be called as number density, number per volume, number per meter cube, number per centimeter cube, number per decimeter cube. It is a number density. So, n upon V into volume of the cylinder. Volume of the cylinder will be Vx dt, its length, and its area of cross section A. So, n upon V is the number of particles present per unit volume, and cylinder volume is Vx dt into A. A is the area of cross section, Vx dt is the length, V is the velocity, Vx is the velocity, and dt is the time period. So, number of molecules, particles present in the cylinder will be this much. So, now what we can do next is, per collision, this is the change in momentum. Then these many molecules are there in that cylinder. If all the molecules in the cylinder collide with that wall, then what is the total change in momentum? So, let me write down that. Total change in momentum if all the molecules in the cylinder collide with the wall area capital A. Here all of you, one more point, let me make it very clear. Actually, we talk about pressure. Pressure is force per unit area. Although vessel is very big, why I am imagining this particular cylinder? Because pressure is an intensive property. Pressure per unit area we want, and we are imagining that particular unit area. Okay, so if all the molecules in the cylinder collide with the wall area A, same area. This is the imaginary cylinder, and all the molecules in the cylinder, if they collide with this area of cross section capital A, then total change in momentum will be n upon V into Vx into dt into A. These are the number of molecules, and if all of them collide, they make the same number of collisions. See, these are the number of molecules, and if each one of them collides with the wall of the container, so number of collisions will be same. Then per collision, this is the change in momentum. So total change in momentum will be into 2mvx. But do you think all of them will collide? Now listen to me very carefully, because here I will discuss a crucial point in the derivation. If all the molecules collide with that wall area capital A, then of course the change in momentum will be that much. But do you think all the molecules will collide? No. Only 1/6 of those molecules collide with the wall of the container. Only 1/6 of these many molecules will collide with the area A, because you see, we have three axes, x, y, z. Suppose the vessel which we have taken is a cubical vessel, for example. Let me take a very simple case, cubical vessel. Now, there is a molecule which is at the center of the vessel. Now, you tell me this cubical vessel has 6 faces, 6 walls. So, the molecule which is present in the bulk of that gas, you just tell me it will collide with which wall? There are 6 walls. So that means out of total particles present in this cubical vessel, 1/6 will collide with the one wall, and 1/6 will collide with the second wall. So similarly, we have 6 walls. So the total number of molecules, if it is n, the n by 6 will collide with one wall, n by 6 will collide with second wall, n by 6 third, n by 6 fourth, n by 6 fifth, and n by 6 sixth. So there are 6 walls. So equal number of collisions will be there on each wall. So it is n upon 6. So even in the cylinder also, we have these many molecules in the cylinder, but only 1/6 of them will collide with that area. 1/6 will collide opposite wall. 1/6 will collide the walls along y-axis. 1/6 along positive y-axis, 1/6 along negative y-axis. 1/6 along positive z-axis, 1/6 along negative z-axis. So on a given particular area A, only 1/6 of them will collide. So it is actually actual change in momentum. Actual change in momentum is equal to 1/6 into n upon v vx dt into a into 2mvx. So that is the actual change in momentum, not this one. This is hypothetical. This is the change in momentum when all of them collide, but that is not the actual case. Actually only 1/6 will collide. 1/6 along positive x-axis, 1/6 along negative x-axis, 1/6 along positive y, 1/6 along negative y, 1/6 along positive z, and 1/6 along negative z. So on any particular wall, only 1/6 of the molecules are coming towards that. So as a result, this is the actual change in momentum. Now this is actually the total change in momentum on that wall area A, which we imagine. I am repeating actually. Although I have taken the shape of that area to be circular, you can take any shape for that area, any shape, it is not a problem. Okay. Now this is the total change of momentum, and then if I write down rate of change of momentum, and what is rate of change of momentum? Nothing but change of momentum by time period. What is rate of change of velocity, which you call it as acceleration? It is change in velocity upon time period. So if I take rate of change of momentum, that will be 1/3 n upon v vx square into A into m, because change in momentum upon dt, that is what is the rate of change of momentum. Dt and dt get cancelled, so you will get 1 by 3 n upon v, vx square into A into m. And all of you recall what is rate of change of momentum? Nothing but force. All of you recall which you have studied in your 9th standard. Force is directly proportional to rate of change of momentum, mv minus mu upon t, time period. You can write down this as m into v minus u, final velocity, initial velocity, upon t. And now this becomes nothing but acceleration. So mass into acceleration. Now you introduce one constant, that is k into ma, and then you define unit force in such a way that k becomes equal to 1, the constant becomes equal to 1. So then F is equal to m into A. So rate of change of momentum is nothing but force. So we can say this is nothing but equal to force. Now we all know pressure is equal to force per unit area. And here one more thing, let me make you recall Newton's second law of motion and Newton's third law. Actually second law says that rate of change of momentum is nothing but force. Now actually we have imagined a wall like this, and a molecule, a particle travels in this direction along x-axis. It collides with the wall of the container. Wall of the container is very rigid, it is not going to move, and as a result this molecule bounces back. So that means this is the force that is exerted by wall of the container. But Newton's third law says that for each and every force there is opposite force which is equal in magnitude. So if this is the force that is exerted by the wall of the container, that will be the same force will also be exerted by the molecules. So then we can write pressure is equal to force upon unit area. This is the force exerted by the wall, and same will be the magnitude of the force exerted by the molecules. So pressure of the molecules, pressure due to molecules, pressure exerted by the molecules is equal to force exerted by the molecules upon unit area, and that becomes equal to, actually here this is the force, and if you divide that with area, then you will get 1 upon 3 n upon v x square into m. So this is the pressure. Now actually we arrived at pressure. Actually at the beginning of this derivation, I have taken one assumption, and I told you that I will remove it later. And that assumption was all molecules have same velocity. And now I am removing that. Now listen to me very carefully. I am replacing this Vx square. I am replacing with that Vx square with a new quantity, and if I do that, that assumption can be removed. We don't require that assumption anymore if you replace this Vx square with some other quantity. And let me write down that. What is that quantity? 1 upon 3 n upon v square x average. And let me write down here, with replacing Vx square with Vx square average, we can do away with the assumption. That means we can remove the assumption. We can do away with the assumption that all molecules have same velocity. And I will explain this actually. Just by replacing this with this, how this assumption is automatically removed. And I will explain that. And you see that actually property V square X average. It is the average of V square. It is not the square of the average. It is the average of the squares. And all of you can understand this. Simple mathematics. There is a difference between average of the squares and square of the average. So this is actually average of the squares. Let me explain actually. By replacing this with particular this property, how can you remove that assumption? Let me explain separately. Now listen to me very carefully. Suppose you imagine a circular area on a wall. Actually, molecules do not have same velocity. They have different velocities. So you imagine a circular area on the wall of a container. And on that wall, some molecules are colliding and they exert some pressure. They are colliding with different velocities. So suppose on that area, 10 molecules are colliding. 3 molecules are colliding with one speed, 4 molecules are colliding with another speed, and the rest of the 3 molecules are colliding with the third speed. So first 3 molecules calculate what is the pressure, next 4 molecules calculate what is the pressure, next 3 molecules calculate what is the pressure. All of them are colliding on the same area, force per unit area. So pressure due to first 3 molecules, pressure due to next 4 molecules, and pressure due to the last 3 molecules, add them, you will get the total pressure. And in one of the previous classes, I discussed actually, particularly during Dalton's law of partial pressures. Can you add pressures? Yeah, we can. If the area is same, it is something like 1 by 2 plus 4 by 2 plus 3 by 2. 1 by 2, 4 by 2, 3 by 2. So their denominator is common, so you can add the numerator simply. It is something like pressure is equal to force upon unit area. And force can be added. And area is fixed. Denominator is same. F1 upon A, F2 upon A, F3 upon A. And the total pressure will be F1 plus F2 plus F3 upon A. So you can add pressures. So if that is the case, now you see. How can we replace them? And if you replace them, how this assumption is removed? Now see. Now we can write down total pressure is equal to P1 plus P2 plus P3. Let us imagine some of the molecules are having velocity V1x, Vx1 you can say, some others Vx2 and some others Vx3. There are 3 kinds of particles. You can take 30 types, you can take 300 types, does not matter. Just for simplicity, I am taking only 3 types. And you can extend this 3 to infinity, not a problem. Conceptually, it does not make any difference. So that is equal to, you see this expression? We can write down 1 upon 3, n upon v, then into m, small m. Now see, we are having this v square, here vx square. So we can write down let me not take n here, let me take only small m. Now see, so vx1 square into 0.3 n, 30% of the total molecules are having this velocity. I already told you, I am taking 3 sets of molecules. 3 sets of velocities. Okay, plus Vx2 square into 0.2n. 30% are having this velocity, 20% are having this velocity, plus Vx3 square into 0.5n. And all of you see that expression. 1 upon 3 into m upon v into this value, that is P1. 1 upon 3 into m upon v into this value, that is P2. Pressure due to these 20% of the molecules. And 1 upon 3 into m upon v into this particular value, that will be P3 on the same area. So we can add those 3 pressures. Now what I am doing is, I am multiplying this entire expression with n and I am dividing that expression with n. And you know that does not make any difference. Multiplying as well as dividing that expression with capital N. So now I will get 1 by 3 small m capital N upon V. Now you can write down Vx1 square into 0.3n plus Vx2 square. Let me keep them in brackets. Okay, Vx2 square into 0.2n, 20%, this is 30%, plus Vx3 square into 0.5n upon n. Because I told you, I am multiplying the right expression with n and I am also dividing it, which does not make any difference actually mathematically. And all of you see that expression in the brackets. What is that? What is that entire expression? Total velocities upon total number of squares of the velocities. It is not total velocities, total squares of the velocities upon total number. And that is nothing but equal to 1 by 3 m n upon v into v square x average. V square x average. So we can, if you replace this Vx square with Vx square average, then that assumption can be removed. You see, I have taken different velocities. Here I have taken 3 categories. You can take 30 categories, you can take 300 categories, no matter. It does not make any difference. So ultimately, this can be replaced with this property, and when you do that, then we don't require that assumption anymore, that all molecules are having same velocity. And one more thing here, actually here we have taken in the previous part, in the cylinder total number of molecules are there, and in that total number only 1/6 are colliding the given area, if you remember that, only 1/6, because others are colliding along y, 2 upon 6 are colliding along y, 2 upon 6 are colliding along z, that means 1/3 along x axis, 1/3 along y axis, 1/3 along z axis. This is the distribution, equal probability, because the molecule is having same probability of going in x direction, going in y direction, going in z direction, going in minus x, minus y, minus z. So 1 by 6, 1 by 6, 1 by 6. So in such case, actually this x is no more required actually. So let me remove this x everywhere. So here also, in this explanation also, we can remove this x. So it is the speed of the molecules. It is simply speed of the molecules. So pressure is equal to 1 upon 3 into n upon v, v square average. And I told you already, it is not square of the v average, it is the average of the v square. And you please make a difference between those two. Okay, now we can rearrange this expression. PV is equal to 1 by 3 n m v square average. Now we can do some mathematical manipulations like this: 2 by 3 into n into 1 by 2. 2 by 3 into 1 by 2 will be 1 by 3. So 1 by 2 m v square average. Now you see the expression which I have written in brackets. Can I replace that with translational kinetic energy average? Now let me write down first, then I will explain. 2 by 3 n into k e translational, let me just write down TR average. Okay, first, what is translational kinetic energy? It is the kinetic energy by virtue of the translational motion of the particle. You know, there are three types of motion: vibrational, rotational and translational. In vibrational and rotational, the center of mass of the particle does not move. Only in translational motion it moves. And here we are considering only that motion, half mv square, you know, mass into velocity. Half into mass into velocity square, that is actually translational kinetic energy. And this is translational kinetic energy average, because it is v square average. Now let me tell you how this be equal to k e translational average. Actually, k e translational average, that is equal to k e1 plus k e2, all translational kinetic energies. So let me write down k e tr1, k e tr2 plus so on k e trn, total number of molecules capital N. So this is what is, upon n. This is what is average, sum of the kinetic energies upon total number of particles. So this is what is k e translational average. Now you can write down this as half m into, let me take half into m common, v1 square plus v2 square so on vn square upon n. Can I write down it like this? Because ke1 is equal to half m v1 square, ke2 is equal to half m v2 square. Kinetic energy translational is equal to half m v square. So, and you look at that expression which I have written in the bracket, that is nothing but half into m into v square average. v1 square plus v2 square so on vn square. So that is the average of the square of the velocities. So, and same thing I did here, you see, half into m into v square average is equal to k e translational average. Okay. Now we can write down this as, now see, actually on the left hand side we have PV, and we know according to the ideal gas equation PV is equal to nRT. So I can replace that with nRT. So PV is equal to nRT, so 2 by 3 n ke translational average. Now we can write this one, n into ke translational average. Ke translational average into number of molecules, total number of molecules. Can I write down that as 2 by 3 ke translational total? And you see this, suppose if you multiply this n with average value, then you will get total kinetic energies, sum of the kinetic energies of all the molecules. So ke total. Now we can write down this as ke translational total is equal to 3 by 2 nRT. And you see this expression, all of you. This is one expression which is very important, and this is another expression which is very important. PV is equal to 1/3 mn V square average, and this is kinetic energy translational average here. This is average. Now let me do one more modification to this expression actually, average. We can write down this as nRT is equal to 2 by 3. Capital N can be written as N into NA. Capital N can be written as N into NA. We have seen this at the beginning. Of course, this is by definition. Then we can write down KE translational average. Okay, and N get cancelled. So now you can write down KE translational average is equal to 3 by 2 into RT upon NA, where NA is the Avogadro number. That universal gas constant upon Avogadro number, that is also a constant. NA is a constant, 6.022 into 10 power 23, and R is also a constant, and the ratio of those two constants is called as Boltzmann constant, which is symbolized as K, where K is the Boltzmann constant. Now this is another expression very important, KE translational average. Now this is the third relation, and you see this average translational kinetic energy is a function of only temperature, and that is very important relation, because everything else in that is constant. 3 by 2 is a constant, K is a constant, Boltzmann constant. So average translational kinetic energy is only and only function of temperature. Total translational kinetic energy is a function of both temperature and number of moles. And the third expression is PV is equal to 1/3 Nm V square average, average of the squares of the velocities. So these are the three important relations, actually conclusions in this kinetic gas equation. Actually, at the end of this kinetic gas equation, just let me give you one particular velocity, the definition of that, and the relation between that velocity and V square average. Okay, and that velocity is actually called as root mean square velocity, VRMS, root mean square velocity, and that is actually defined as under root of V square average. If you remember, actually this keeps on coming in our derivation. We have replaced V square with V square average, and when we replaced that, I told you that that assumption that all molecules have same speeds no longer required. Okay, so VRMS is nothing but under root V square average. So that means you can write it like this, under root V1 square plus V2 square so on Vn square, because there are n number of particles, upon capital root mean average square, mean of the squares of the velocities. So root mean square, and that velocity is nothing but equal to under root V square average. Okay. Now we know that PV is equal to 1/3 mn V square average, average of the squares of the velocities. So this is we got this in the derivation. Now if V RMS is equal to under root V square average, now can I write down this as 1 by 3 m n V RMS square, because you square both the sides. So V RMS square is equal to V square average, so we can replace with it, and you can write down V RMS is equal to under root 3 into PV upon m n, and we can write down this as 3 into nRT, PV is equal to nRT upon m into n into Na, and here n and n get cancelled, and we can write down this as 3RT upon capital M, because small m into Avogadro number is capital M. So RMS velocity formula is equal to under root 3RT upon M. Now this is another important relation, and actually this is the definition of RMS velocity, root mean square velocity. Now this is another conclusion, the fourth conclusion in kinetic gas equation. One is this one, and second one is this one. Third, average translational kinetic energy, which is a function of temperature only, and fourth, total kinetic energy, total translational kinetic energy, which is a function of both n and temperature, both temperature as well as number of moles. So these are the four important conclusions in kinetic gas equation.